You know that magical moment when you realize your husband's working late schedule matches perfectly with his ex-girlfriend's Instagram check-ins? Yeah, that fairy tale moment when you discover you've been living in a romantic comedy. Except you're not the leading lady. You're the oblivious wife who probably should have gotten a supporting actress Oscar for best performance by someone who pretended not to notice. My name is Sarah Chen, and apparently, I've been invisible for the past 6 months. Not superhero invisible, more like furniture that occasionally cooks dinner invisible. The kind where your husband looks right through you while texting someone whose contact name is suspiciously saved as Kevin from accounting. Because yeah, Kevin from accounting definitely uses heart emojis and sends good morning selfies at 6 a.m. It all started when Michael, my husband of 8 years, suddenly developed this passionate interest in overtime. Now, Michael's relationship with work has always been, let's call it, complicated. The man who used to treat Mondays like personal grief days was suddenly volunteering for late shifts. Either he'd been abducted by aliens and replaced with an ambitious clone, or something was seriously wrong with this picture. The first red flag should have been when he started caring about his appearance again. Michael, who'd spent the last 3 years treating sweatpants as formal wear, suddenly discovered hair gel and cologne. He bought new shirts, plural. The man who needed GPS to find the laundry room was suddenly shopping for clothes. I should have known right then that my marriage was about to become a statistic. But the real kicker? He started leaving his phone face down. Always. Michael, who used to show me every meme he found, every work email, every random notification, suddenly treated his phone like it contained nuclear launch codes. When I asked about it, he'd give me this look, you know the one. That "you're being paranoid" expression that makes you question your own sanity. Gaslighting 101, ladies and gentlemen. The breaking point came last Tuesday. I was doing what any rational person would do, stalking my husband's social media activity like a digital detective. Don't judge me. We've all been there. And there it was, glowing on my screen like a neon sign. Amanda Blackwood, his college girlfriend, the one he lost touch with years ago. The same Amanda who'd been liking every single one of his posts, commenting with suspicious familiarity, and whose location tags perfectly aligned with his mysterious work meetings. Amanda Blackwood. Even her name sounds like a romance novel villain. She's one of those women who probably describes herself as spontaneous and adventurous, which is code for, "Will sleep with your husband and post cryptic quotes about following your heart." Her Instagram is a masterpiece of subtle homewrecking. All sunset photos and inspirational quotes about living authentically and not settling for less than you deserve. Real deep stuff from someone who's apparently decided she deserves my husband. The surveillance began innocently enough. A little social media checking here, some timeline cross-referencing there. I felt like Sherlock Holmes. If Sherlock Holmes specialized in catching cheating husbands and had access to location services. Modern problems require modern solutions, right? That's when I discovered the pattern. Every time Michael claimed to be working late, Amanda was posting photos from the exact same neighborhood. Coffee shops, restaurants, even a bookstore. Always within a 3-block radius of Michael's supposed important meetings. Either they were experiencing the most incredible series of coincidences in human history, or my husband was cheating on me with all the subtlety of a marching band. But here's where it gets really interesting. And by interesting, I mean soul-crushingly pathetic. I found out about their grand romantic plans completely by accident. Michael left his laptop open. Rookie mistake, really. And there it was. A reservation confirmation for Le Bernardin. For 2 people. On Amanda's birthday, Le Bernardin, the restaurant we'd never been to because it's too expensive, and what's the point of fancy food when McDonald's exists? The same man who split appetizers to save money was dropping serious cash on a birthday dinner for his side piece. The irony was so thick you could serve it with a nice wine pairing. I sat there staring at that email, feeling like I was watching my life through someone else's eyes. 8 years of marriage, and he'd never planned anything more elaborate than take out Chinese for my birthday. But Amanda? Amanda gets Le Bernardin. Amanda gets romance. Amanda gets the version of my husband that I'd apparently never met. The logical response would have been to confront him, scream, cry, throw things. You know, the traditional scorned wife playbook. But here's the thing about being married to someone for 8 years. You learn their weaknesses. And Michael's biggest weakness? He absolutely crumbles under pressure, especially in social situations. The man who orders pizza by pointing at the menu because talking to strangers makes him nervous was about to have the most uncomfortable dinner of his life. Because I wasn't going to confront him. I wasn't going to give him the satisfaction of my tears or the convenience of my anger. No, I was going to do something much, much worse. I was going to make sure Amanda's birthday dinner became absolutely unforgettable, just not in the way they were planning. You see, I'd done my homework on little Miss Amanda Blackwood. Her social media might scream free spirit, but her family photos tell a different story. Conservative parents from Connecticut. The kind of people who still send Christmas cards and probably think living in sin is an actual geographic location. The kind of parents who raise their daughter to be respectable, wholesome, and definitely not the type to date married men. Richard and Patricia Blackwood, pillars of their community, church-going, country club attending, what will the neighbors think kind of people. The type who would be absolutely mortified to discover their precious daughter was having an affair with a married man. Perfect. That's when inspiration struck like lightning, if lightning were powered by pure vindictive genius. I was going to give Amanda the surprise of her life, a birthday dinner she'd never forget. And Michael? Well, Michael was about to learn that hell hath no fury like a woman with access to Google and a really, really good plan. The beauty of revenge is in the details. And honey, I was about to become Michelangelo with a paintbrush made of pure spite. Phase 1 of Operation Birthday Surprise required some serious method acting. I had to become someone I'd never been before. The enthusiastic friend who just couldn't wait to celebrate Amanda's special day. I started by creating a fake Facebook profile. Meet Jennifer Martinez, Amanda's old college roommate, who'd been thinking about her so much lately. You know how easy it is to look trustworthy on social media? Post a few photos of a latte, add some inspirational quotes about friendship, and boom, you're practically Mother Teresa. I even threw in a picture of a golden retriever, because nothing says reliable human being like dog ownership. Finding Richard and Patricia Blackwood's contact information was easier than finding matching socks in my laundry. These people were so active in their community, they might as well have had their life story printed in the local newspaper. Church directory, country club newsletter, charity event photos. They were everywhere. Finding their phone number took exactly 3 Google searches. Modern technology really is a gift, especially when you're planning someone's social destruction. The phone call was a masterpiece of manipulation. I channeled every sweet, enthusiastic sorority girl I'd ever met and dialed their number with the confidence of someone who definitely wasn't about to ruin their daughter's life. Mrs. Blackwood? Hi, this is Jennifer Martinez. I was Amanda's roommate at college. I hope you remember me. I'm the one who helped her through that terrible organic chemistry class. The pause on the other end told me everything I needed to know. They had no idea who I was, but they were too polite to admit it. Classic Connecticut manners, their downfall and my advantage. Oh yes, of course. Patricia's voice was warm, slightly confused, but welcoming. How lovely to hear from you, dear. How are you? I'm wonderful. Thank you so much for asking. Listen, I'm calling because Amanda's birthday is coming up, and I wanted to plan something really special. I know how close you all are, and I thought it would be amazing if you could join us for dinner. I've made a reservation at this incredible restaurant in the city, Le Bernardin. Have you heard of it? The excitement in her voice was almost painful to hear. Oh my goodness, how thoughtful. Richard and I would love to celebrate with Amanda. She hasn't mentioned you were in town, but what a wonderful surprise this will be. Surprise, if only she knew. I wanted to keep it a secret, I continued, practically choking on my own fake enthusiasm. You know how Amanda loves surprises? I thought we could all meet at the restaurant. Let's say 7:30. I'll make sure she's there. That sounds perfect, Jennifer. Should we bring anything? Just yourselves. Oh, and maybe don't mention it to Amanda if you talk to her. I really want this to be a complete surprise. After hanging up, I sat in my car, laughing like a cartoon villain. The plan was so simple, it was almost elegant. Michael and Amanda would be having their romantic birthday dinner, completely unaware that Mom and Dad Blackwood were about to crash their intimate evening with all the force of a moral meteor. But I wasn't done yet. Oh no, this was just the opening act. The next step was reconnaissance. I needed to know exactly how this restaurant was laid out, where the best viewing angle would be, and most importantly, where I could sit to watch the drama unfold without being spotted. Because, honey, I wasn't going to miss this show for anything. I'd paid for these tickets with 8 years of my life. I called Le Bernardin and made my own reservation. For one, at 7:30. Could I possibly have a table with a good view of the dining room? I'm a food blogger, and I love to observe the atmosphere. The hostess was happy to accommodate. Apparently, being a fake food blogger gets you better treatment than being a real wife. The hardest part was acting normal around Michael for the next few days. Every time he mentioned working late or checked his phone with that guilty expression, I wanted to laugh in his face. Here he was, planning his grand romantic gesture, completely oblivious to the fact that his wife had already planned a much better surprise. "You seem happy lately," he said one morning, which almost made me choke on my coffee. Happy? I was practically vibrating with anticipation. I was like a kid on Christmas Eve, except instead of waiting for Santa, I was waiting to watch my husband's entire world implode in the most public way possible. "Just feeling grateful," I replied sweetly. "You know, counting my blessings, appreciating what I have." It wasn't even a lie. I was incredibly grateful. Grateful that I'd discovered what a complete joke my marriage had become before wasting any more years on it. Meanwhile, Amanda was posting her usual cryptic nonsense on Instagram. "Sometimes the universe has the most beautiful surprises planned," she wrote under a photo of herself looking pensively out a coffee shop window. The universe, sweetie? The universe didn't plan this. I did. And trust me, it's going to be beautiful in all the worst ways. 3 days before the dinner, Michael started getting nervous. Really nervous. He was checking his phone constantly, pacing around the house, even cleaning. And Michael cleaning is always a sign of extreme psychological distress. "Big presentation coming up at work?" I asked innocently while he scrubbed the bathroom for the 3rd time that week. "Something like that," he mumbled, not meeting my eyes. "Really important meeting. Could make or break my career." Right, because nothing says career advancement like buying someone else's girlfriend a birthday dinner. The lies were getting so elaborate, I almost felt bad for him. Almost. Then I remembered that he was cheating on me, and my sympathy evaporated faster than his integrity. The night before the dinner, I couldn't sleep. Not because I was having second thoughts. Oh no, I was way past that point. I couldn't sleep because I was too excited. Tomorrow night, Michael and Amanda would be expecting a romantic evening, and instead, they were going to get a family intervention courtesy of their own stupidity. I'd already picked out my outfit. Elegant but understated black dress, perfect for blending into expensive restaurant backgrounds while watching marriages implode. I'd charged my phone to full battery for optimal evidence gathering. I'd even practiced looking surprised, just in case I needed to act shocked by any of the evening's revelations. Everything was perfect. Almost too perfect. But then again, when you're dealing with people dumb enough to think they can have an affair in the Instagram age, perfection isn't that hard to achieve. The morning of Amanda's birthday dawned bright and beautiful, which felt like the universe's way of providing perfect lighting for the evening's entertainment. I woke up before my alarm, practically bouncing with anticipation. It was like Christmas, my birthday, and the season finale of my favorite show all rolled into one perfectly vindictive package. Michael was already up, standing in front of the bathroom mirror with the intensity of a man preparing for surgery. He'd been in there for 45 minutes, which was approximately 44 minutes longer than his usual grooming routine. The cologne situation alone was concerning. I could smell him from the bedroom, and not in a good way. He'd apparently decided that if a little cologne was good, then half the bottle must be fantastic. "Special meeting today?" I asked, appearing in the doorway with my coffee and my best innocent wife expression. He jumped like he'd been electrocuted. "What? Oh, yeah. Really important client dinner. Could be a game changer for the firm." A game changer. He wasn't wrong. just not in the way he thought. This dinner was definitely going to change some games. Specifically, the game where he thought he could lie to me indefinitely. "Well, you certainly smell confident," I said, waving my hand to disperse the cologne cloud. "I hope your client appreciates the effort." "Yeah, well, first impressions matter, right?" "Right indeed." And Amanda's parents were certainly going to get quite the first impression of their daughter's secret boyfriend. After Michael left for work, or wherever he was actually going, I began my own preparations. This wasn't just about watching the drama unfold. This was about documenting it. I needed evidence for the divorce lawyer I'd already consulted. Because yes, I'd been busy these past few weeks. While Michael was planning his romantic surprise, I'd been planning my legal strategy. My lawyer, Margaret Stone, had been wonderfully thorough. Adultery might be old-fashioned grounds for divorce, but it's still grounds, she'd explained. And if you can prove it with evidence, it makes everything much simpler, especially when it comes to asset division. Assets, like the house Michael thought was ours, but was actually mine, thanks to the inheritance from my grandmother that had paid the down payment. Like the savings account he'd been dipping into for his romantic dinners. Like the car he'd been using to drive to his affairs. Funny how quickly ours becomes mine when lawyers get involved. I spent the afternoon in a state of zen-like calm. I did yoga. I took a long bath. I painted my nails a shade called Revenge Red. Okay, it was actually called Crimson Glory, but I was feeling poetic. I even called my sister Lucy to check in, though I couldn't exactly explain why I was in such a good mood. "You sound different," she said. "Happy. Like, genuinely happy. What's going on?" "Oh, just feeling optimistic about the future. Like things are finally going to change." "That's great. You've seemed so stressed lately. Maybe you and Michael should plan a nice vacation or something." A vacation. Right. The only trip Michael was going to be taking was a one-way journey to his parents' basement, but I kept that observation to myself. "We'll see," I said. "Tonight feels like it might be a turning point." Around 5 o'clock, I started getting ready. I'd chosen my outfit carefully, elegant enough to belong at Le Bernardin, dark enough to blend into the background, and comfortable enough to sit through what was bound to be an extended performance of human awkwardness. My phone buzzed with a text from Michael. "Working late tonight. Don't wait up. Love you. Love you." 3 months ago, those words would have made me smile. Now they just made me shake my head at the sheer audacity of it all. He was telling me he loved me while on his way to celebrate another woman's birthday. The cognitive dissonance required for that level of deception was almost impressive. I texted back, "Have a great night. I'm sure it'll be unforgettable." If only he knew how right I was. At 6:30, I drove into the city, my heart racing with anticipation. This was it. 8 years of marriage were about to end in the most spectacular way possible, and I had front-row seats to the show. I parked a few blocks away from Le Bernardin and walked, enjoying the cool evening air and the feeling that justice was about to be served alongside some very expensive seafood. The restaurant was exactly as pretentious as I'd expected. All dim lighting and hushed conversations and waiters who probably earned more than most people's annual salaries. Perfect. Nothing says romantic evening like having your affair exposed in front of New York's culinary elite. The hostess greeted me with professional warmth. "Ms. Chen, party of one? Right this way." She led me to a small table with perfect sightlines to the main dining room. I could see everything from here. The entrance, the prime tables, even the kitchen doors. It was like having a director's chair for the evening's performance. I ordered a glass of wine, the good stuff, because tonight was definitely a celebration, and settled in to wait. According to my reconnaissance, Michael and Amanda should arrive around 7:15 for their 7:30 reservation. Richard and Patricia Blackwood were due at the same time, expecting to meet their daughter's college friends for a birthday surprise. The wine arrived, and I took a sip while checking my phone one last time. Everything was perfect. The restaurant was filling up with the usual crowd of wealthy diners who had no idea they were about to witness the most entertaining dinner theater of their lives. At 7:10, my phone buzzed with notifications. Amanda had posted a selfie with the caption, "Birthday girl ready for surprises." She was wearing a red dress that was definitely too revealing for a family dinner. and her makeup was pure date night perfection. Poor thing had no idea that her birthday surprise was going to come with a side of moral judgment from Mom and Dad. 7:15 arrived right on schedule. Through the restaurant's windows, I could see a taxi pulling up. Richard and Patricia Blackwood emerged, looking exactly like Central Casting had ordered concerned conservative parents. Richard in a navy suit, Patricia in pearls and a cardigan. They looked around uncertainly before walking toward the entrance. This was it. The opening act of the evening's entertainment was about to begin, and I had the best seat in the house. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Michael. Just arrived. This place is incredible. Incredible was certainly one word for it. In about 30 seconds, it was going to become unforgettable for all the wrong reasons. I raised my wine glass in a silent toast to the chaos that was about to unfold. Showtime. Richard and Patricia Blackwood entered Le Bernardin looking like they'd stepped out of a Land's End catalog, all understated elegance and quiet confidence. They approached the hostess stand with the kind of polite authority that comes from years of charity galas and church committees. I watched them speak to the hostess, saw the slight confusion on her face as she checked her system, then the professional smile as she gestured toward the dining room. They were seated at a table with a perfect view of the entire restaurant. I couldn't have arranged it better if I'd bribed the hostess myself. From their vantage point, they'd see everything that was about to unfold, and from mine, I'd see their reactions. This was better than Broadway. 5 minutes later, the main characters arrived. Michael walked in first, and I barely recognized him. Gone was my schlubby husband who considered putting on pants a major fashion statement. This version of Michael was groomed to perfection. Hair styled, beard trimmed, wearing a suit I'd never seen before. He moved with the confidence of a man who thought he was about to have the perfect romantic evening. Behind him came Amanda, and wow, just wow. She'd really committed to the birthday seductress look. The red dress was even more revealing in person. Her hair was professionally styled, and she was wearing enough jewelry to finance a small country. She looked like she was ready to be proposed to, which made what was about to happen even more delicious. They were shown to their table, an intimate corner spot with flickering candles and rose petals. Someone had really gone all out for this birthday celebration. Michael must have spent more on this dinner than he'd spent on my last 3 birthdays combined. The dedication was almost admirable, if it wasn't completely devastating to our marriage. I watched Michael pull out Amanda's chair, watched her giggle at something he whispered in her ear, watched them hold hands across the table like teenagers in love. The whole scene was nauseating in its sweetness. They looked so happy, so completely absorbed in each other, so blissfully unaware that their romantic evening was about to become a family intervention. The Blackwoods were studying their menus, occasionally glancing around the restaurant with the patient confusion of people waiting for someone who was clearly late. Patricia checked her phone twice, probably wondering where Jennifer Martinez was. Richard flagged down a waiter, probably to ask if anyone had left a message for their party. And there, in the middle of it all, sat their daughter on what was obviously a romantic date with a married man whose wedding ring caught the candlelight every time he reached for his wine glass. The moment of recognition happened in slow motion. Patricia Blackwood looked up from her menu, scanning the restaurant one more time for their missing party. Her gaze swept past Michael and Amanda's table, paused, returned. I watched her face change as she processed what she was seeing. The polite confusion shifted to recognition, then to horror, then to something that looked like she might faint. She reached across the table and grabbed her husband's arm with enough force to make him drop his menu. "Richard," she whispered, but in the acoustics of the restaurant, I could hear every word. "Richard, look." He followed her gaze to Amanda's table, and the change in his expression was immediate. The kindly, patient father disappeared, replaced by someone who looked like he'd just witnessed a car accident. His face went from confusion to shock to something that might have been rage, all in the span of about 5 seconds. Meanwhile, Michael and Amanda were completely oblivious. They were lost in their own little world of romantic conversation and expensive wine, totally unaware that Amanda's parents were sitting 30 feet away, having what appeared to be simultaneous heart attacks. I pulled out my phone and started recording. This was evidence gold, and I wasn't going to miss a second of it. Richard Blackwood stood up with the careful control of someone trying very hard not to cause a scene. Patricia followed, clutching her purse like a shield. They began walking toward Amanda's table with the determined pace of parents who had just discovered their daughter was not the person they thought she was. This was it. This was the moment when Michael's carefully planned romantic evening became the most awkward family dinner in the history of human relationships. Amanda saw them first. I watched her face cycle through every emotion known to psychology in about 3 seconds: surprise, confusion, panic, and finally, absolute terror. Her wine glass stopped halfway to her lips, frozen in midair, like time had suddenly stopped working. "Mom? Dad?" Her voice carried across the restaurant with perfect clarity. "What are you doing here?" Michael turned around to see what had captured Amanda's attention, and the look on his face was pure comedy gold. He went from romantic leading man to deer in headlights so fast I was worried he might get whiplash. His mouth opened and closed several times without producing sound, like a fish gasping for air. Amanda Rose Blackwood. Patricia's voice had the kind of quiet authority that could probably stop traffic. What exactly is going on here? The use of Amanda's full name was devastating. Everyone in the restaurant could tell this was a daughter in serious trouble with her parents. The kind of trouble that doesn't get solved with apologies and flowers. This is... Amanda was floundering beautifully. "Mom, Dad, I'd like you to meet my friend Michael. We were just having dinner to celebrate my birthday." Friend? I almost choked on my wine. Michael looked like he'd been slapped. After months of romantic dinners and secret rendezvous, he'd just been demoted to friend in about 2 seconds flat. Friend? Richard's voice was dangerously quiet. He was staring at Michael with the intensity of someone trying to decide whether to call the police or handle things himself. "Is that what we're calling it?" Michael, to his credit, tried to stand up. The effort was admirable, even if it was about 6 months too late. "Mr. and Mrs. Blackwood, I can explain—" "Can you?" Patricia interrupted. "Can you explain why you're having an intimate birthday dinner with our daughter while wearing a wedding ring?" And there it was, the nuclear bomb, delivered with all the devastating precision of a mother who had just realized her daughter was dating a married man. Michael looked down at his hand like he'd never seen his wedding ring before, like it had just materialized there through some kind of evil magic. The entire restaurant had gone quiet. Every conversation had stopped. Every fork had paused mid-bite. Everyone was watching this family drama unfold like it was dinner theater, except the actors hadn't signed up for this performance. This was even better than I'd imagined. The aftermath was poetry in motion, if poetry could be set to the soundtrack of a man's entire life crumbling in real time. Michael tried to explain himself, but explaining adultery to your affair partner's conservative parents while sitting in one of New York's most expensive restaurants is apparently not a skill they teach in business school. His attempts at damage control were masterful in their complete ineffectiveness. "Mrs. Blackwood, it's not what it looks like," he said, which is universally recognized as the thing people say when it's exactly what it looks like. Richard Blackwood had moved past shock into what I can only describe as controlled fury. "Really? Because what it looks like is our daughter having a romantic dinner with a married man. Are you telling me that's incorrect?" "Well, technically," Michael started, then stopped as he realized there was no technically that was going to help him here. Amanda had gone completely silent, which was probably her smartest move of the evening. Sometimes the best strategy is to let the men dig their own graves while you figure out which direction to run. Patricia pulled out her phone and started taking pictures. "For your wife," she announced to Michael with icy precision. I assume she'd want to know where her husband spends his evenings. The panic in Michael's eyes was visible from space. "Please, you don't understand." "Oh, I understand perfectly," Patricia continued. "You're a married man taking advantage of our daughter. The question is, what exactly are we going to do about it?" That's when I decided it was time to make my grand entrance. I walked over to their table with all the casual confidence of someone who definitely belonged in this conversation. "Excuse me," I said, addressing Patricia directly. "I couldn't help but overhear. Are you talking about Michael's wife? Because that would be me." The silence that followed was so complete you could hear hearts breaking in stereo. Michael's face went through every color in the spectrum before settling on a pale green that complemented his sudden nausea perfectly. Amanda looked like she wanted to crawl under the table and disappear forever. Richard and Patricia stared at me with the fascination of people witnessing a train wreck in slow motion. "You're his wife?" Patricia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. 8 years and counting, I replied cheerfully, though apparently not counting very accurately, since I was under the impression marriage meant exclusivity. Silly me, right? I turned to Michael with my brightest smile. "Honey, you never mentioned you were bringing friends to dinner tonight. How thoughtful of you to celebrate Amanda's birthday. And what a coincidence that her parents happen to be here too. It's almost like someone planned this whole thing." The realization dawned on Michael's face slowly, like sunrise over a very stupid landscape. "Sarah, did I what, sweetheart? Make dinner reservations? Plan a surprise party? Invite Amanda's parents to meet the man their daughter's been sneaking around with? You'll have to be more specific." Amanda finally found her voice. "You planned this? You called my parents?" "Guilty as charged," I said, pulling out the chair next to her and sitting down like I'd been invited. "I thought it was time for some family bonding. Don't you think parents should know who their children are dating? Especially when that person is married to someone else?" The genius of the plan was finally revealing itself to everyone at the table. Richard and Patricia looked at me with something approaching admiration. Amanda looked horrified, and Michael looked like he was considering whether the emergency exit was close enough for a dramatic escape. "You orchestrated this entire thing," Michael said, his voice hollow with the realization that he'd been completely outmaneuvered by the wife he'd apparently underestimated. "Orchestrated is such a fancy word," I replied. "I prefer to think of it as community service. Your girlfriend's parents deserve to know what kind of man she'd been seeing. You deserve to have your romantic evening with some unexpected guests. And I deserve to watch it all happen from the best seat in the house." 6 months later, I was living in my fully owned house with my wonderfully quiet evenings and my complete control over the television remote. The divorce had been remarkably straightforward once Richard and Patricia Blackwood provided their testimony about witnessing the affair firsthand. Turns out having witnesses makes everything simpler. Michael moved in with his brother, since Amanda had decided she wasn't interested in dating recently divorced men. Apparently, watching someone betray their spouse makes you question their character. Who could have predicted that? I kept the house, most of the savings, and gained something infinitely more valuable: the knowledge that I was capable of planning the perfect revenge. Some people discover they're good at painting or playing piano in their 30s. I discovered I was a strategic genius with a talent for social destruction. As I sat in my garden last weekend, sipping wine and reading a book in blissful silence, I couldn't help but smile. Sometimes the best surprises are the ones you plan for yourself. And sometimes, the most romantic thing you can do is fall in love with your own independence. Who knew betrayal could be so liberating?